see you all this Thursday afternoon. Let me call this meeting to order, and I'll start as we always do by acknowledging we are on the unceded territory of the Algonquin Anishinaabe Nation. Welcome to meeting 24 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Natural Resources. Today's meeting is taking place in hybrid format. We have a couple of our colleagues who are joining us by Zoom. I would like to remind participants of the following points because we are in hybrid format. Before speaking, please wait until I recognize you, and for those participating by video conference, click on the microphone icon to activate your mic, and please mute yourself when you are not speaking. For those on Zoom, at the bottom of your screen, you can select the appropriate channel for interpretation, either Floor English or French, and for those in the room, you can use the earpiece and the select desired channel.
Point of order, Mr. Chair?
Yes?
Yeah, I was just want a confirmation if Mr. Hodgson would be staying here for the full hour. Well, now we're starting a bit late.
So.
It is receivable.
Yes. It's a point of order. Yes. My understanding is Mr. Hodgson will be with us for the first hour, and then officials will be here for the second hour.
For a full hour.
Yes.
To be here for a full hour, not just.
I'll stay an extra minute.
Yeah.
Well, Chair,
Yes.
I think what we're trying to clarify is, as per the schedule and the announcement and the public agenda and the minister's commitment, he will be here for the full hour when we start the meeting, since we are starting quite late due to votes.
That is my understanding, unless there's extenuating circumstances, and I don't believe there are. And I just got the thumbs up from Minister Hodgson. So thank you for that point of order, both of you. Just finishing my introductory blurb, as I always do, for members participating in person or via Zoom, please raise your hand if you wish to speak. We don't have any witnesses that are on, so I think I can dispense with the rest. And as everyone knows, comments should be addressed through the chair. Pursuant to Standing Order 108.2 and the motion adopted Tuesday, January 27th, the committee shall commence. Yeah, that's the wrong study. Okay.
Don't worry, because what happened to me last time is I read out, but as I was reading, realized I was reading the thing you're not supposed to read. So
Right.
these things happen to us.
Right.
But as a quick
Colleagues, the
cover,
subject matter today, as you know, is clauses 593 and 594, Division 41 of Bill C-15, an act to implement certain provisions of the budget tabled in Parliament on November 4th. This was sent to us by Finance and is under consideration today. And I would like to welcome, on your behalf, our witnesses, the Honourable Tim Hodgson, Minister of Energy and Natural Resources. Welcome, Minister. And the Department of Natural Resources, Greg Orenchak, Deputy Minister, and Aaron O'Brien, Assistant Deputy Minister, Fuels Sector. Minister, welcome, and you will have 5 minutes for your opening remarks, after which we will open the floor to questions. Welcome. You have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, colleagues, for inviting me to the Standing Committee today. Hello, everyone. Bonjour. It's my pleasure to appear here before you today to discuss elements of the Budget Implementation Act related to my department. Colleagues, Canada finds itself at a decisive moment. We are facing a trade war started by the United States. We need to build resilience across our economy, as well as deal with climate change. But these challenges present tremendous opportunities if we are bold, if we are strategic, and most importantly, if we are united. Budget 2025 is about seizing these opportunities to ensure Canada leads as an energy superpower with an economy that is strong, sustainable, and sovereign. Canada's LNG sector is essential to our goal of diversifying exports beyond a single market and to solidify our position as a stable and low-carbon superpower, as well as a reliable supplier to our allies around the world. As LNG supplies expand to meet demand, Canada is positioned to offer a long-term, low-emission, and predictable option to global markets. Colleagues, the world wants what Canada has to offer. Providing LNG to our allies and partners is key to making Canada an energy superpower, to bring jobs to Canadian communities across this country, to bring higher wages to our workers, and to build resilience we need as we tackle these unfair and unjustified American tariffs. This year, with our first exports to Asian markets underway as of this last summer, and the referral of LNG Canada 2 and the Silicim's project to our new major projects office, Canada's LNG sector has historic momentum. LNG Canada Phase 2 would double the production of LNG Canada Phase 1 to become the second largest facility of its kind in the world. And the Silicim's project, led by the Nisga'a Nation, would become Canada's second largest LNG facility with capacity to export 12 million tons per annum of LNG. The federal budget puts forward... AI at work. The federal budget puts forward two measures that would further strengthen LNG exports. First, Budget 2025 reinstates accelerated capital cost allowance for low-carbon LNG facilities, making these investments more attractive to investors while rewarding top-tier emissions performance. And second, Division 41 proposes to amend the Canadian Energy Regulator Act so that LNG export licenses are extended to 50 years, 10 years longer than before. This will have a profound impact as it will mean more time for project owners to amortize the added capital costs of their low-emission strategy. It will allow them to pursue phased investment to expand their facilities, and it will strengthen their returns. Current license holders can also apply for longer-term licenses if their environmental approvals remain valid and if the Canadian Energy Regulator assesses that Canada will still have enough natural gas to meet domestic needs. These amendments may seem technical, but they have real impact. They ensure Canada can compete for investment from around the world. It can create jobs, we can generate greater royalties, and expand government revenues so we can pay for the things we are proud of as Canadians. Our universal health care, our $10 a day child care, and our public infrastructure. They also reflect our approach to streamlining regulations, accelerating projects, and delivering certainty for proponents and investors so our communities can prosper. If we consider the work being done by the Major Projects Office, the two LNG projects we referred to them could benefit from these changes. These two projects alone represent over $100 billion in investment and would support thousands of good-paying jobs during construction and long-term employment across BC and Alberta. Should all proposed LNG projects proceed, Canada could be exporting as much as 100 million tons per annum of LNG, creating massive economic growth, increased international energy security, and a strong competitive advantage thanks to our continued efforts to protect the environment and respect Indigenous rights.
Minister, we're over time, so I'll allow you to maybe 30 seconds to finish up, please.
Okay, members, you know what? I think they'd rather ask me questions.
Yes,
so
I think they would too. Thank you, Minister, and I'm sorry for that, but I wanted to be respectful of the committee's time, and indeed, they, I'm sure, have some good questions for you. And so we are going to start with Mrs. Stubbs for 6 minutes. Mrs. Stubbs.
Thank you, Minister, for being here today, for your personal outreach, your offers for meetings, which we haven't yet had, but of course I'll say the same things to you privately and publicly. So I look forward to this conversation today. So per clause 593 and 594 of the BIA, of course, Conservatives do support extending LNG export licenses for to 50 years for long-term certainty, and we've pushed for LNG approvals consistently for the reasons you've now articulated. Except since 2015, as you know, the current federal government approved only 4 of 18 Canadian LNG proposals, and only the one that Conservatives approved, LNG Canada 1 and also 2 at the same time, actually operates, while the U.S. approved 26 with 16 building and operating. The U.S., of course, is the world's lead exporter now. The government of Canada turned away Europe, so other countries moved to fill the gap. Mexico is poised to beat Canada. So my first question is just how can Liberals claim to want Canada to be an energy superpower when those are actually the facts on Canadian LNG?
Thank you for your question. I think I can say with humbleness and humility, this is a new government with a new prime minister, with a new minister of energy and natural resources, with new parliamentary secretaries, with a different leadership in the civil service that the Prime Minister has put in place, which I think has very clearly shown a different approach to energy.
Okay.
As our Prime Minister has said.
Thank you, Minister. So let's move on to the current situation, because you did mention your referrals of LNG Canada 2 and the Slisms project, which of course could have been done immediately after your election, not so long after now. But I do have some questions, therefore, about this process, since we're going to talk about the future. So in addition to those referrals on November 13th, 2025, you also referred the critical tungsten Sisson mine in New Brunswick to the MPO. We support that, of course. What's the target date for completion?
I don't have that in front of me.
Your point of order, Mr. Gay?
Yeah, my question is, I thought we were supposed to stay on topic, and now we're in mining.
Ms. Tubbs, relevance, if you could stick to
Sure,
the
the
topic of
relevance
the
is
day.
that this is questions to the Natural Resources Minister about natural resources projects. He himself has just mentioned the new approach that he claims, so I'm going to ask him questions about it.
Yes,
And it's all relevant.
We are specifically discussing 593, 594 of Bill C-15, and so if you could at least draw some connection to that, I would appreciate
Chair.
it.
I did at the top, and I do want to confirm that my time has been paused,
Yes,
because
it
I did
has.
draw the connection
Yes,
at
it
the
is.
top, according to the minister's own answer.
Proceed.
Great, thank you. So we support the referral of the tungsten mine in New Brunswick, as well as the referral of the Slissoms LNG project. But I think the key question is, what are the target dates for completion? And I only raise this with you because the same Liberal government promised construction on the tungsten mine in 2018, but it's 2026. So when will construction start?
I am just trying to find the update.
So I think the concern is that even if you're referring projects to the MPO, is it true then that projects are being referred without deadlines for construction?
No, the target. It took me a little while to find. I don't have it all to memory. We have regular updates at the MPO, and the update I'm looking at targets FID for the Sisson mine in 2027. It targets construction start date in 2029 with an in-service date of 2030.
So that's that wouldn't be building in speeds never seen before in generations, I guess. But on this point, Minister, during the debate on C5, I tried to entrench the timeline that you want to achieve. You said you wanted to achieve of 2 years by an amendment into the law. It was rejected by the Liberals. Would you consider putting the 2-year timeline in the law? Because the only thing that matters is in the legislation.
Mr. Speaker.
Yeah, colleagues, this is
Chair.
about LNG, according to the notice of meeting. So, Ms. Stubbs, I would ask you to speak to the topic at hand.
Okay, sure. Minister, since Conservatives agree with you that LNG projects are in the national interest, and we consistently for 10 years have been pushing to fast-track LNG approvals and exports so that Canada could beat the U.S. and so that we could supply a fuel for European allies to get off Russian gas, one concern I have is that your government does say projects in the national interest will be approved. I asked your government to define it in the debates on Bill C-5 and also again in the fall. Your government refused both times. So how can proponents or investors in LNG and all other sectors know what will make the cut with your government, since they need clarity and certainty, and you yourself have made that point very compellingly? Time?
So in both LNG Canada 1 and in Silisms, there's an regular ongoing dialogue once the referral is made to the MPO. There is ongoing interaction. The commitment is within 2 years you will get a conditions document, and that will tell you what you need to do to operate.
And so for Canadians who understand that, that means that there's going to be at least a 2-year process, and then there will be an approval with conditions, and then there are quite a few years probably after that before we're actually getting a shovel in the
if
ground.
if we deliver a conditions document in 2 years, that is best in OECD. That is a world-class performance. I will say that some of our colleagues south of the border will say we'll do it in 30 days. There is no way that a 30-day review process is a sustainable process. It may work for a short period of time.
Thank you.
And those are emergency provisions. They do most
thank
at
thank
6
you
months,
both.
and that's
Thank
what
you
Conservatives have
both.
proposed.
We're going to go on to Mr. Clark. Mr. Clark, you've got 6 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. Minister, thank you very, very much for being here today. You talked about LNG quite a bit in your opening statement, and obviously that continued through the first round. And I think it's a good topic to talk about because there's a lot of really exciting things happening. As you mentioned in your opening statement, last summer, for the first time, Canada began to export LNG to Asian markets from the West Coast. I'm just wondering, Minister, if you could summarize for us, in your view, what the LNG sector means for this country in terms of economic opportunities, specifically export-related, which, as we know, is a key part of our government's promise to double non-U.S. exports over the next decade.
Yeah. So what I had said to you in my opening remarks is if we deliver as we hope, proponents will ultimately increase our production to as much as 100 million tons per annum. That would make us one of the largest suppliers of LNG in the world. What is very clear from the economic analysis that we do is that the royalty streams, the tax streams, and the good-paying jobs that come with these LNG facilities are amongst the most significant contributors to provincial budgets in terms of added revenues, and they are major, major contributors to tax bases. And so from a Canadian perspective, just from an economic perspective, they're amongst the most impactful projects we can do. In addition to LNG Canada and the Silisms projects, we are also tracking wood fiber LNG, which is under construction. We're tracking cedar LNG, which is at construction. We are tracking Tilbury LNG, which is near FID. And there are several other earlier stage projects. So from an economic perspective, it's very significant. From a geopolitical perspective, what I hear everywhere I go, whether it's Germany, whether it's the UK, whether it's China, whether it's India, whether it's my colleagues who were recently in Japan or Korea, what we hear is all of those countries are interested in energy transition. They view LNG as a really important transition fuel. It gives them a much cleaner alternative to what most of them are doing today, which is burning coal. And what we hear over and over again is with the dramatic increase in electricity around the AI phenomenon, our allies expect to be using that transition fuel, expect to use a lot more of it for a longer period of time. And when they have a choice of where to get that LNG, Canada stands out as a reliable supplier, a supplier that doesn't use energy for coercion, and a country that's committed to doing building its LNG exports in an environmentally responsible way, with the lowest emissions LNG in the world. That's what our allies want. If they have a choice between ours and some of the other players, they would like to choose ours.
Yeah, actually, that leads me into my next question, Minister, was related to that around the environmental aspect of this, right? There's obviously huge economic imperatives that you've touched on, but based on what you just finished saying there, I think is it safe to say that not just in our own opinion, but the things we hear from our allies, trading partners, and potential trading partners around the world, that the fact that Canadian LNG is some of the cleanest, most environmentally responsible in the world is a real value add to our partners, both current and prospective. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, in two aspects. One is our allies want it because it lets them get off coal faster. We heard that, could not have heard it more clearly from the Chinese and the Indians when I've been in both places in the last month or two. And also presented with two choices, one that is produced with a lower carbon intensity than the other, they will take the lower carbon intensity fuel. And I think as the world continues to recognize the importance of transition, our belief is over time people will start paying more for that low carbon intensity LNG. Today they don't. Today, if they get two the same, if you can give them the low carbon intensity, they take it. I think over time you'll start to see people pay for that.
How much time, Mr. Chair?
You've got 20 seconds, so...
Minister, quickly you touched on this, but what do some of these projects do when it relates to relationships with Indigenous peoples in this country? You mentioned silisms. I know we're
Quick
pressed
answer,
for time.
please. Quick answer.
Look, what Canada has done is figured out how to build LNG in partnership with First Nations. I think that's a credit to this country. And I think it's going to be one of the things that really helps us deliver the economic portion of reconciliation that First Nations have been looking for a long, long time.
Thank you both. And we are now going to move on to Monsieur Sima. 6 minutes. Allez-y.
You have 6 minutes. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I want to make sure that the minister can hear me properly on the interpretation channel. It's working? Great. I would have liked to be in person with you today, but I just couldn't be there. But I just want to show you that I'm still doing a good job. I listened to you closely in the past, and I listened to your opening remarks. And many times in the past, you said that we needed to have aces up our sleeves, and that we were at a decisive moment, and that Canada could be an energy superpower. Professor Kinu and Professor Muxo also came to testify before the committee and stated that Canada would never become an energy superpower, but we can leave that aside for now. My concern is the following. Under what conditions would you be ready to approve an LNG pipeline? I'll explain to you why. Because in C15, if you look at page 300 of the French, we can see that the government is giving the minister the powers to exempt some companies from any statutory. Oh,
Point d'ordre, c'est que
my point of order is that this is a section that finance did not refer back to us. It's not up to the committee to look at the section. It was not requested to do so, the one that Mr. Simard is talking about. Well, just for the...
On the point of order, I would ask all committee members to kind of stick to the agenda here. We have clauses 593 and 594 of Bill C-15. That is the topic at hand, and the questions should be addressed to the minister in those areas,
Oui.
or at least draw some relevance. Yeah.
Je veux pas que ça occupe mon temps, monsieur.
I don't want this to be taking up my time, Mr. Chair.
Il y a quand même eu de la latitude.
But there was latitude shown for my colleague when the minister spoke about international markets, and that's not directly linked to what was referred to us by the Department of Finance. So I hope you will extend the same latitude to me. And there is a direct link to Bill C-15, and we're talking about LNG here. My question for the minister is, in the case where...
Mr. Simard, so you can resume, but please do try to draw that link to relevance, please.
Oui. Donc, mon temps, c'est mon temps.
Yes, I mean, my time is my time. But, you know, I can speak the whole time if I wish.
Mrs. Stubbs, your point of order?
Just for efficiency, for respect for the minister's schedule and for all of us, and also to support our colleague, Mr. Simard, I just think we have to wrap this up right now so we don't continue to have these interruptions. The minister is perfectly capable of answering these questions. He's extremely experienced. He's going to have no problem, so he doesn't need anybody running interference. And of course, the fact is that when ministers are at committee, the convention is to allow latitude for the MPs to ask questions. And I would just quote Proc from Thursday, February 5th, 2026, where actually the minister's predecessor, to whom I also used to be the shadow minister, Honourable Jonathan Wilkinson, had questioned the relevance of one of the opposition members. The chair of that committee on February 5th, 2026, at Proc again, the chair said, "I appreciate the interventions. Generally, when the minister is here, there is a latitude. There is generally more latitude given." So I think, you know, you are a kind and generous chair, as you always are, which is also your personality. I think the minister is more than capable of asking questions. As he has said, Canada is in a crisis. We all agree. We're agreeing on fast-tracking projects, which Conservatives have always pushed for. So why don't we just stop this back and forth, get on with the meeting, be efficient for Canadians and for all of our schedules.
Thanks for that point of order, Mrs. Stubbs. Colleagues, you know, I think you're very skillful politicians. You can make that link to relevance on the issue that we are talking about. I will allow latitude, but please proceed, Mr. Simard.
Oui.
Your time is starting again.
I think this is directly linked to what we're talking about. What I wanted to ask the minister is still related to the LNG project. If such a project went against the interest of a province which refused to allow it on their territory, for example, would the federal government plow ahead?
As I've said, we've been clear we work with provinces. If there is an LNG project in a province, we will certainly take the input of provinces and First Nations. But, you know, I don't think it's productive to have hypothetical conversations. I talk about actual projects from actual proponents.
Je ferais simplement vous souligner.
I simply want to highlight, Minister, that we have hypothetical discussions all day long here at Parliament. So in terms of that, I mean, everything would have to be not productive. I'm asking you this because you announced, well, your government announced that it wished to go ahead with oil and gas infrastructure projects. I don't see a developer at the moment, but I know that there are many provinces and many people among, for example, Indigenous communities who have clearly stated that they are against such projects. People from the industries, because they did come to see us, did tell us that what bothers them the most is the standards and the political framework that prevents them from going ahead with this construction, this type of construction. So if you want to move ahead with building this kind of infrastructure, you're going to have to play with the standards. That's what I'm getting from these discussions. What I'm asking is, should the government continue to will it do like it says in C15 and leave those standards aside?
What the Act says is there are 5 criteria we will use when a proponent brings a project forward. Strengthen Canada's autonomy, resilience, and security, provide economic and other benefits to Canada, have a high likelihood of successful execution, advance the interests of Indigenous peoples, and contribute to the clean growth and Canada's climate change objectives. When a proponent brings a project forward, we will evaluate them against those criteria, and to the extent that they meet those criteria in the way of a net benefit to Canada, we would consider referring it to the Major Projects Office, and if required, we would consider designating it. But that is a case-by-case situation. Every single project will have a unique combination of those 5 criteria, and it will be the job of the Build Canada Committee and ultimately the Privy Council to decide whether or not those 5 criteria are met, and whether it warrants a referral and potentially a designation under the Act.
Mais vous faites référence au projet de...
You're referring to Bill C5, Minister. I'm asking you specifically about C15. In C15, we see on page 300 of the French version directly that the government is giving the power to ministers for 3 years to gives them the power to subtract these various, some of the projects from having to meet certain requirements. So if you want to, do you have plans to make sure that there isn't that kind of thing done?
Sandbox provisions. Is that correct?
Right.
Yes. Look, I was the chair of the Canadian Investment Regulatory Organization. The use of sandbox provisions is a very common and normal practice of any regulatory body. It is a way to experiment in a time-limited manner to try new things and get things done. One uses the sandbox when one thinks they okay.
Thank you.
It's quite a normal process.
Okay. Thank you both. Colleagues, we are going to go on to our second round, and thank you for at least sticking to the topic of LNG and energy, which we're here to discuss today. Monsieur Martel, Monsieur Mallette, 5 minutes, and you're going to be splitting your time.
Yes, I'll be sharing my time with Mr. Mallette. Thank you, Minister, for being here with us. Minister, despite more tax credits for urgent projects, phosphate is still being excluded. Given its strategic importance, can you work with the Minister of Finance to ensure that this can move forward? Yes, because we're talking about critical minerals. I mean, the Minister...
The Minister you know, we can invite the minister back on these
Okay.
general topics, but we have a very specific
OK.
job that the minister of,
Écoutez,
that
parfait.
the
OK.
Department of
Monsieur,
Finance has given us.
Monsieur Chair, si vous voulez ça. Monsieur le ministre,
Well, if
vous-
that's what you'd like, Mr. Chair. Minister, you know that in northern Quebec, there are many critical minerals. And there are many regions that don't have access to natural gas and to LNG. In your strategy, are you thinking of connecting pipelines towards the north because there are many critical minerals, for example, in Chibougamau? So that would mean a lot of transport if you could have processing plants built. So instead of bringing those minerals much further to process them, is it part of your plan or your strategy to bring LNG to those areas in the north where the critical minerals are?
So again, we respond to private sector proponents. If a private sector proponent brought a project to take LNG to that region of Quebec, we would one, obviously chat with the affected province and understand their desire for that project. We would talk with affected First Nations, and we would look at the 5 criteria in C5. And we would evaluate it against that. And if the conclusion was we had support from the province, we had support from First Nations, and in going through the 5 criteria, which again are strengthening Canada's economy, providing economic and other benefits, having a high likelihood of successful execution, advancing the interests of Indigenous people and contributing to clean growth. If we concluded that there was a net benefit there, we could look at that. But again, I'm not sure it's terribly productive to think in hypotheticals. We really need to look at real projects that you can evaluate in a real way against the criteria.
Monsieur le ministre, qu'est-ce qui ferait que...
Minister, what would make a critical mineral project be of national interest? Because, you know, we talked earlier about the critical minerals and how many countries may want to purchase them from us. That would be something of national importance. From that point on, would there be a way to impose those projects for LNG as part of these national projects?
So the last bit of your question, please.
Oui. Oui. Qu'est-ce qui ferait que...
Yeah. What would make critical minerals... What would make critical minerals of national interest to us? Because we have a lot of resources in that sector. How could we make them of national interest so that they can be part of the discussion?
Canada has a series of minerals that has designated as critical minerals. Each of our G7 allies has a series of minerals that have been designated as critical minerals. Our NATO allies have laid out a series of critical minerals. As we look at Canada's need for secure and sovereign access to critical minerals, and our allies' need, we would be looking at rank ordering projects. We would be looking at which projects are going to meet that critical need for us, and which projects are going to meet that critical need for allies. And then we start talking with often our allies, because we have a finite demand here in Canada. Many of the mines and processing facilities we would be bringing on are typically going to be providing our needs, but often our allies' needs, and we look for where our allies are willing to help us.
Thank you.
And so we did 26 of those in October, and we're going to do more at PDAC.
Thank you both. Unfortunately, Mr. Martel, that's your time. Perhaps Mr. Millett can share his time later with Mrs. Stubbs. We'll see. Mr. Danko, you have 5 minutes.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Minister, for joining us this afternoon. We've heard in the House several times members of the opposition stand up and say that they would use the federal government, leverage the authority of the federal government to override Indigenous rights in order to move projects forward. And you started an answer talking about building LNG in partnership with First Nations, the importance of economic reconciliation. So I want to give you this opportunity to expand on how our government is working with Indigenous peoples, Indigenous rights holders, as we develop the LNG sector. And can you share more about the opportunities that you see with building these collaborative relationships?
Thank you for the question. We're all, I like to say we're all prisoners of our own history. In my history, I was the chair of the largest publicly traded transmission and distribution company in the country. And when I took over as chair, we had not built a new transmission line in 10 years. And we had not built them because we were trying, again, it was the previous, we're trying to build around First Nations and in spite of First Nations, and it clearly wasn't working. The history that I know is we decided at that corporation to change our approach and to proactively engage at the start of the process, to not view First Nations as a risk factor, but to view them as a strategic opportunity to advance projects. And when we chose to partner with them at the front end of projects, what we found is the projects started going ahead of schedule as opposed to behind schedule, and under budget as opposed to over budget, because our partners, the First Nations, had the same objectives as we had. And in my history, we went from, as I said, being a corporation that hadn't built a new transmission line in 10 years to building more transmission lines than any company in North America. And that's because we were doing it in partnership with First Nations, not in spite of First Nations. And I think if you look at what's happening specifically in LNG, there were false starts before, and MP Stubbs referred to some of those false starts. I think what you see today is you see things like LNG Canada, which is in full partnership with the Haisla First Nation. You see Silicim, which is in full partnership with the Niska Nation. You see Wood Fiber, which is in full partnership with the Squamish Nation. And you see Cedar LNG, which is actually the first majority-owned Indigenous LNG facility in the world. So we've come from a place where LNG was not getting built because in many cases, we were building around or trying to go through First Nations, to a place where today we have their support and we are getting them built. And so I come back to, and what I tell any proponent, I know that my experience is if you do the right thing up front and you engage early, First Nations can help you accelerate projects and get them done on time and under budget. And so, in my view, First Nations engagement is an opportunity, not a risk.
40 seconds, Mr. Danko.
Thank you, Minister. We heard upfront, desire from, our side and also the opposition, desire to get major projects moving forward as quickly as possible. Obviously, the first step for that would be to actually get the Budget Implementation Act passed. But in the short time, would you be able to share any further steps that we are taking to accelerate energy and natural resources projects?
What I can tell you is in the case of both LNG Canada 2 and the Ksi Lisims project, I can tell you the MPO is working on a daily basis, making sure all of the different requirements to build are being coordinated from a permitting perspective across the various. I think there can be as many as 16 different ministries that are touched. The MPO provides a one-window approach to those.
Thank you. Thank you both. Sorry to cut you off there. We're a little over time, but thank you both. And we're going to move on to Monsieur Simard, 2.5 minutes.
2.5 minutes.
Two speakers for making links to LNG, which is the subject of today's meeting. Thank you.
Monsieur le Ministre, tout à l'heure.
Minister, earlier you stated that you didn't want to get into hypotheticals. Now, if I look at the building of a pipeline, I saw what happened with the LNG projects in my area. We know it takes 10 years to build one. In 10 years, the LNG market probably won't be the same as the one today. I understand that there are European countries that would need LNG, Canadian LNG. Maybe they need it now, but who knows what the price will be in 10 years. There are superpowers like China that are making many changes to the energy sector through electrification, for example. Will our projects be as competitive in 10 years? The businesses that are ready to build these projects, will they get public monies for this type of construction, for example? So there are many, many hypotheticals involved in the building of a pipeline. Maybe you could tell us more about that.
So if I understood your question, it was some pundits don't think there's going to be demand for LNG, so why should we build them? And I love pundits who have no skin in the game, who produce lovely reports that have zero economic impact on anything. As a business person, my experience is I like to talk to customers. And if a customer tells me they're willing to pay for something and they're willing to provide a long-term contract for it, I look at that as a lot more valuable signal than a pundit. And there is a wonderful place for professors, and I believe you were a professor previously. There's a wonderful place for professors to talk about things, but if someone's going to pay me to do something and provide me a long-term contract to do it, I will value that signal far greater than a pundit.
Vous savez,
Thank you.
Oui.
I'm sorry, Mr. Simard. We've got to move on to Mrs. Stubbs. A point of order. What is your point of order, sir?
C'est que M. Simard est un chargé de cours et non un professeur.
Mr. Smart was not a full professor. I just wanted to point that out.
Mr. Martel,
Merci beaucoup.
that is not a point of
C'est
order.
important.
So, but thank you.
I consider him a
Mr.
full
Simard.
professor.
Yeah, and we're going to go on to Mrs. Stubbs for 5 minutes. Mrs. Stubbs.
Thank you, Chair. And Minister, you have outlined precisely the...
je voudrais simplement faire un point d'ordre.
I have a point of order to say that Richard was a trainer in the minor leagues, not the national leagues.
Not
Voilà.
point of orders, and we are spinning out of control here. So,
I'm glad
and
we're all in good
I
nature.
Get a grip,
Can I
Mr.
start
Chair.
again from the top?
I know that Mrs. Stubbs has some
top.
good questions for the minister, and we have stopped her time, so
Thank
she
you.
can start over.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. So, Minister, you yourself have clearly outlined the catastrophic, tragic loss of those 16 LNG projects that, in fact, have been canceled under the last 10 years of this Liberal government, billions of dollars lost. And the story that you've told about Indigenous people and partners on LNG Canada is, of course, exactly the story of the development of the Alberta oil sands, which I know that you know well. And I just want to put on your radar that in the debates on C5, I raised the point that judicial decisions, of course, say the decision makers must be at the table with a two-way dynamic with Indigenous communities. I proposed amendments to safeguard this issue in C5. The Liberals defeated my amendment. I fear that decisions that are going to come out of C5 will be challenged in court precisely because the Crown is not taking on its duty to consult to get these projects done in a good way. So I just want to flag that for you. And since you mentioned real proponents and real projects, I need to get back to this issue we discussed before that you raised. Here is the trouble, I think, for Canada, which is also urgent, is that 21 real projects are stuck at the Canadian Energy Regulator right now. There are 8 stuck at the Canadian Nuclear Safety Commission, and 43 real projects with real proponents are stuck at the Impact Assessment Agency. So you yourself, and I have a quote here, during the debates in June on Bill C5 said that this bill allows us to do all the things we need to do in one centralized place under one set of timelines and to take those learnings to go back and deal with the other acts over time. So my question is, since 72 projects are in limbo right now with only 11 referrals but no clear path to construction in sight, when will those laws and regs that are listed in Bill C5 that you've designed to do a workaround be fixed for everyone, all proponents in all sectors, to attract investment and jobs to Canada and give confidence in Canada as a place to invest and build?
So in the homework I did in advance of today, my understanding is from an export license perspective, there have been 3,600 export licenses issued by the CER. The vast majority of them are regular export licenses, and they get approved on average within 2 days.
So that's not referring to the projects and proponents that I am, but...
And there are 35 major projects that have been put forward through the CER, and they take on average, I believe, 18, is it 18 months? 180 days. And what I was told is 100% of them cleared within 180 days.
So here's my concern. I know that every Liberal at this table is new. I've been here since 2015, and I led the debate on C69. There were claims that there were concrete timelines in that bill. There were none. And I tried to put concrete timelines into C5. There are none. So this is why Canadians and Conservatives who agree with you that Canada faces a crisis are very concerned about this clarity. So to that end, and since you're mentioning new projects, in December you did announce an MOU to work towards a Pacific pipeline. I think most Canadians, Albertans expect this work is happening. Can you update on the federal Crown's Indigenous consultation to date?
So the MPO is waiting for the proponent to come forward. When the proponent comes forward and says they want to move forward, then the consultation will start. From the MPO perspective.
Okay. So this is exactly the challenge because judicial precedents and your own law says cabinet is the decision maker. So it can't be the MPO's job. But I need to move on, Minister, with limited time. So since you mentioned competitiveness with the United States, which Conservatives have been pushing Liberals to pay attention to for the last 10 years, and Conservatives want Canadians to beat the United States, but of course, now the U.S. is both Canada's biggest customer and competitor. And here's a question I think for the long term that all of us should be grasped with. What Canadians should be focusing on is what Canada can control, not unpredictable or hostile actions from anyone else. So here's the issue. your government has the ability to allow Canada to compete by removing the federal costs and red tape that are placed on Canadian workers and businesses, like the oil and gas cap, the federal industrial carbon tax, drilling and tanker bans, gas and diesel vehicle bans, and innovation censorship law. The United States, our biggest customer and competitor, does not impose any of these costs or red tape on their private sector proponents and entrepreneurs and investors. So when will you actually deal with all of these issues, some of which are also in C5, so that Canadian entrepreneurs, business owners can compete with the United States, so we can be self-reliant, affordable, and secure?
Minister, the short answer, if you could.
We are controlling what we can control. We've set 2 years to a conditions document. We're doing one project, one review. The Americans, in my opinion, are taking an unsustainable approach. And when capital providers look at what you go in the U.S. from the IRA at one extreme to the big, beautiful bill at the other extreme, you cannot allocate capital when you have that kind of seesawing in regulatory frameworks. We've provided, I think, a far
Except
more...
right now, the United States is the world's leading exporter of LNG, so they figured out something out, right?
Yeah.
Right.
Thank you, Minister. Thank you, Mrs. Stubbs. We have to move on to Mr. Clark, who's going to be wrapping up this second round. Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Minister, you've touched on this a little bit in some of your previous answers, but the MPO, I believe you said up to 16 departments could potentially be touching on a major LNG project, for example. In your view, the MPO and then also one project, one review, which you just cited, I know the government has signed agreements with about half the provinces so far, with more to come in terms of simplifying that process. Just if you could just give us your view on how significant that is from a government standpoint, but in many ways, more importantly, from a proponent standpoint, when they're making investment decisions that are running into the tens of billions of dollars in some cases.
So one project, one review is incredibly impactful and powerful. And what it says is we're not going to ask the proponent to face two sets of regulatory gates when there is an equivalency between the two. So what the federal government has said is where there is equivalency between federal regulations and provincial regulations, the federal government will stand back, where we have a one project, one review agreement, where we worked through it and concluded there is equivalency. So what does that mean in real life? Well, back in the fall of last year, late fall, the Siliciums project, the one that I referred to earlier, which will be the second largest private investment in the history of this country, was approved by the province of British Columbia, I believe, at 4 o'clock Pacific time on a Monday. And the federal approval came at 4:30 the same day. When you are a proponent, that is worth, on a project that is tens of billions of dollars, that's worth hundreds of millions of dollars in saved duplication, in extended timelines and incremental cost of construction, in terms of saved interest on construction, and just in sheer pain of getting something done. So it has been incredibly impactful. It's we're starting to see BC is the farthest advanced. We saw the same thing on the Red Chris mine, and I think we're going to see the same things on some other things coming down the pike. As you correctly pointed out, we made it a priority as our One Canadian Economy Act that we try and bring down barriers between the federal government and the provincial government. This is one of the most impactful ways we can do that.
Yeah, I agree completely. About 10 years ago, Minister, I worked for the Natural Resources Minister in Nova Scotia. And at that time, there was a proposal, Goldboro LNG, to export LNG to Germany, actually, at that time. And one of the issues at the time was mismatching regulations on the provincial side that I was dealing with at that time. But I saw that a decade ago. So to see what we're doing now and to see that you can have a 30-minute window between provincial and federal approvals is a quantum leap, to be honest. So I appreciate that answer. The last thing in the time that I have here, a little over a minute, is how can LNG in particular, and as you said in a previous answer, it's a tremendous bridge or transition fuel between where we've been and where we're going. How can LNG in particular help Canada become that energy superpower and become net zero by 2050, something that we talk about quite a bit? Thank you.
So there's two ways. There's domestically and there's internationally. So and how much time do I have? Because I got to calibrate here. Okay, that's way too complicated. Look, the reality is we're going to need to spend $1 trillion between now and 2050 to grow our grids. We're going to have to do that with a whole bunch of different technologies. We're going to do it with renewables. We're going to do it with nuclear. We're going to do it with hydro, where we have the opportunity to do it with hydro. And we will do it with abated natural gas wherever possible. And so in that context, it will help us get to where we need to go. What the Prime Minister says is we are not going to get to net zero by denying people economic lives. We're going to get to net zero by growing our economy and by using new technologies like CCUS, both pre-combustion and post-combustion, and all the other renewable technologies and green hydrogen. And if we have more time, we can talk about what we saw in China and India in the way of what they're doing today. So there is absolutely a place for natural gas in that stack of generating options.
Thank you. That brings your time to an end, Mr. Clark, and this panel to an end. So I want to thank the Minister on your behalf. Spirited exchange, Minister. I think you'll agree, and good questions by members. I tried to keep my best to keep us on the topic of LNG, and I think we got there in the end. Thank the department for coming to see us. You didn't get a big workout there, but I'm sure we'll have you back to okay. All right. Colleagues, we're going to take a short break while we change panels. So again, thank you, Minister. Thank you, Department.
Thank you.